Hey, I'm Ray Talabis. Welcome to a special edition of my cigar reviews. It's a special edition because the focus for this review will be whiskeys from around the world. Um, I'll be trying or giving a review, not just a review, but a tasting of 8 special whiskeys, particularly from the first whiskeys we'll be trying from Canada, followed by America, followed by Scotland, and then finally from Japan. Um, Whiskeys range from Canadian whiskeys to American whiskeys, to to single malt Scotch, to blended Scotch, and finally to Japanese whiskey, which is whiskey made in Japan in the Scotch tradition. They use Scotch techniques to brew or to produce their whiskeys. I'll be pairing these whiskeys with a cigar. Um, the cigar for today's review is a special cigar, one of my favorites. It's the Fuente Opus X Toro. Um, has a cedar sleeve with a red footband. Um, it's Toro size Fuente Opus X. I want to say that this is about 5.5 inches by 50 ring gauge. One of my all-time favorite cigars. I love the Toro size. I love the Churchill size. I love Robustos. Opus Robustos, one of my favorites. And as most people know already, probably if they've been following my reviews. The Fuente Opus X #2 is my favorite cigar of all time. The smaller Rotolas of Opus are pretty good. Are all very excellent. From going down from Coronas to Petite Coronas to even Lanceros and Petite Lanceros. Um, yeah, so but the focus of this review is not really on the Opus. It's going to be mostly on the whiskeys that we'll be trying, the whiskeys from of the world. The Opus is just for the pairing, how it pairs with the Opus. So I'm kind of excited for this. I love all these whiskeys. I love the Opus, so this should be a very good review. I'm excited. And so that's what we're doing today. Um, Also going to be pairing with some water. Um, Let me lit a cigarette here. Yeah, so whiskey. You know, my favorite whiskey is American whiskey. I find it to be more approachable than um, than Scotch, which is probably my second favorite whiskey. Although Japanese whiskey is kind of like inching its way towards that position or whatever as second favorite. I love Canadian whiskey. I just don't, I only have one kind of Canadian whiskey. I've never really tried the various other Canadian whiskeys out there. So my Canadian whiskey is Crown Royal. I love the Crown. But whiskeys are just a wonderful you know libation. It can be serious, and that's why I kind of like American whiskey more than I like Scotch. Is that American whiskey tends to be friendlier. It tends to be a little bit more caramelly, a little bit more sweeter than say a Scotch or whatever, and that's why I like American whiskey more than Scotch. But don't get it twisted. I love Scotch very much. I just like American whiskey a little bit better. Canadian whiskey kind of reminds me of American whiskey. But anyway, we'll be trying to like winnow the nuances, the nuances, the differences between these whiskeys of the world. Yeah, so that's the review for today. Kind of excited to do this. You know, Canadian whiskey will be the first whiskey that we'll be trying for this review. I won't be pouring like really healthy pours. I mean, because I'll be like uh, reviewing 8 whiskeys, so I won't be pouring like healthy pours. Just to sample the whiskey and try to get the flavor and I'll try to kind of convey how I'm tasting the whiskey and maybe how the whiskey pairs with the Opus. All right, so that's the review for today. It's not a traditional cigar review. The focus of this review is basically the whiskeys that we'll be trying, the whiskeys of the world that we'll be trying and pairing with the Opus. So let me take a break. I hope you guys are all doing well out there. Today is November 7th, 2018. In Baltimore, Maryland. It's Wednesday evening around 4:30 in the evening. Hump day for everybody out there. The day after the midterm elections happened in America. Um, you know, the Democrats won the House back. The Republicans kept the Senate. So we'll see what happens going forward in the political environment of America. I'm hoping for the best, and I'm also for the best. So, anyway, for everybody out there in the world, you know, surfing the information superhighway. I hope you guys are all well out there, and you know, season's greetings. All right, I'm gonna hit a break. Take care. Hey, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? I hope you guys are all doing well out there. This is the first portion of this video review for Whiskies of the World, pairing with a Fuente Opus X Toro, about 5.5 by 50 ring gauge. The whiskeys I mentioned earlier. The in order of trying these cigars, the first whiskey will be coming from Canada, followed by the United States of America, followed by Scotland, and finally followed by Japan. There is no like reason behind the order of this other than like Canada's close to America, and so that's why Canada's, and then America, then Scotland. Scotland I hold very close to my heart, and then Japan. It's kind of a newcomer, so that's probably what I'll be doing it last. To me, anyway, the newcomer of the whiskeys to me is Canada. I mean, not Canada, but Japan. So yeah, let me this is the first whiskey from that we'll be trying. It's a whiskey from Canada. It's Crown Royal. Um, it's a whiskey with a lot of history. I researched this in the 1930s. The King and Queen of England visited Canada, and they want and the Canadian government wanted to produce a special Canadian whiskey for their state visit in 1930. So they produced the old Crown Royal. Um, Later, they decided to make a regular production of Crown Royal for everybody else, and we're all very thankful for that. So, like I said, this is the Crown Royal. I'm not going to give myself healthy pours for these whiskeys because I'll never make it through the review. If I gave myself healthy pours, probably like maybe 3/4 of an ounce, just to get a taste for the whiskey and things like that. So, that's a bit healthy, but I'll try to keep it down from now on. That was a little bit more of a healthy pour there. That's about an ounce. So, yeah. Yeah, so there it is. The Crown Royal Canadian whiskey. Give it a sniff. Kind of smells like caramel, maybe a little bit of apples. Very elegant. I can't help it. I have to try this. Very strong. Strong caramel notes. Good fire. Very delicious. Gonna go ahead and clip and light the cigar we'll be pairing with these whiskeys. The Fuente Opus X Toro. This cigar is probably about 4 years old, from 2014. If you know anything about my reviews, my first review ever over the internet was on the 2014 Corona Opus X, and this is a 2014 Opus X Toro. It's got a rosado color. Um, it's got a nice rosado color. Um, Smells like spicy tobacco off the wrapper. Smells like spicy tobacco off the foot. Like most opuses, very firmly packed. Um, well, I love Opus, so I'm very happy to be smoking this right now on this Wednesday night, November 7th, 2018. The Wednesday after the uh, the midterm elections in the United States of America. I think people are feeling pretty good. I mean, depending on what party affiliation that you are and everything. I mean, at least the Senate was kept by the Republicans, and the House was kept by the was won by the Democrats. So uh, at least there'll be some checks and balances, more checks and balances in the government. So I think that should be helpful. All right, time to toast it. Little bit of lighter problem there. So go with the old Calibri, um, my old reliable. So going to go ahead and toast a foot. Like I said, if you can get like one light out of this lighter, it's pretty good. It always lights the first time, but it's my favorite lighter. But it's got its own personality, so it does what it wants to do. So hey, whatever, man, I love it. Toast the old edge of the foot with the my old Bic. Bics tend to light all the time, so you know that's good. All right. Bit of a tight draw. Tasting mostly pencil lead right now, which I like. I love. Love leather and pencil head. Love. Say that 2 times. Love leather and pencil lead. So not the greatest of draws right now. Gonna pinch it a little bit. Hopefully that worked. About a draw. I'm getting like a pencil lead flavor right now and a soapy flavor. Kind of interesting. I like it. Uh, Tastes like Opus. Leather, cedar, tobacco, spice, earth. I love it. So here we are with the Crown Royal. I mean, like, I might not have, like, the most educated palate when it comes to, like, tasting whiskeys and everything, because like most of the time when I taste like American whiskey, it just tastes like, you know, either like mostly caramel to me, caramel and fire. Fire, that I mean, is a strong alcohol, kind of like a component to a liquor. And that's what I mostly taste with American whiskeys and maybe even Canadian whiskey. Scotch can have that leather and cedar kind of like, you know, component. Just classic scotches like Belvini, or like maybe even like a uh, like a Chivas or whatever. The leather and cedar with the fire. The one whiskey, the Japanese whiskey that I just got, my most recent purchase. Actually, the second most recent purchase, called Hakusho Japanese whiskey, does have like some like pears in it. Very kind of like floral, beautiful flavors in that whiskey. Kind of like thick a little bit. The body of the Hakusho is very kind of like viscous, but kind of excited to try all these whiskeys for you. So this is the Crown Royal. Caramelly, very delicious. Has a good body. Very deep, complex caramel flavor. Um, Classic Opus flavors coming from this. Pairs well with the Opus. Most whiskeys pair well with cigars. The caramel flavor in whiskey kind of like is very in some whiskeys is very complementary to the brown earth kind of like tobacco flavors of cigars. So this is the Crown Royal. I'm gonna go ahead and hit a break after this. After after the break, we'll be drinking the American whiskeys. I'm gonna be drinking Basil Hayden, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and Evan Williams 1783 Small Batch Kentucky Straight Bourbon with what is it? Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So we'll be tasting two American whiskeys after the break. Give you some more, flavor profiles for the Opus. Getting a lot of classic Opus flavors of leather and cedar and pencil lead right now. Very delicious. I love those flavors out of Opus. Very complimentary to the whiskeys that we're drinking. Anyway, here's to the Hump Day. Here's to people from around the world. You know, During this holiday season, I wish you season's greetings and all the best. This is Crown Royal, Canadian whiskey. Cheers. Very smooth, very flavorful, very reminiscent of to me of an American whiskey. All right, gonna hit a break. Ciao. Hey, okay, back from the break. Again, this is a special edition in my reviews. It does include a cigar component. We're pairing whiskeys with cigars with Opus X, Toro. But this review basically is a whiskey review. Not basically a whiskey review. It is a whiskey review, but I'm just trying to give tasting notes on the different whiskeys that we'll be trying from around the world, and hopefully pairing it, getting a pairing note with the Opus. So now on to the American whiskeys. This is one of my favorite whiskeys from America. It's the The Evan Williams 1783 small batch, straight Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, American whiskey, bourbon. If you didn't know, only bourbon, only whiskey out of Kentucky can be called bourbon. Like, so for instance, like if a whiskey is made in Tennessee or from other states, it can't be called bourbon. It must be called whiskey, or American whiskey. Just Opus down for a little bit. Here we go. Trying to make this pour a little bit less than the other one, because I'll just be like, slurring my speech. Like, if by the time we hit like the fifth bourbon, or not bourbon, but whiskey, I'm starting to have like, whatever. But so this is the Evan Williams 1783 small batch Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. That's a little better. Not much, but I'll get better at this as we go along in terms of the pour. Don't want to give myself too big of a pour. Want to make it through this review. Um, there it is. It's a little. I would say this is like the same color as the Crown Royal, maybe a little bit darker. Again, this is Evan Williams Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 1877 small batch. Color is kind of like a classic. Well, a little bit lighter than the classic bourbon color. Kind of like amber. Um, Smells caramelly. I mean, most of these American or Canadian whiskeys, I mean, even some like Highland Scotches have that strong caramel flavor. But it's delicious though. I love these flavors. It's the caramel flavor. I think the caramel flavor, because originally like distilled liquor is clear and flavorless, but when you put it in a charred oak barrels, it picks up the color and the flavor of the charred oak that it's stored in. That's why it gets that caramel color and flavor. Some classic scotches, they don't have a lot of that caramel flavor or color, like a Belvini or a Chivas Regal. They have that kind of like blonde color, and are more like cedary and leathery in my estimation of flavors. Smelling caramel, it smells delicious. This has a sharper caramel flavor than the Crown Royal. Classic bourbon. Classic bourbon. Just delicious. Very smooth, but yet flavorful. A lot of fire. Very delicious. Again, this is the Evan Williams 1877. Sorry. 1783. I'm sorry. Evan Williams 1783 small batch straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. Very delicious. Has a little bit of a mineral taste to it. Very caramelly. Um, Good fire or good alcohol strength. Just delicious. Like I said, the color is amber. Um, it's kind of got that classic American whiskey color to it. A little bit darker than Crown. Crown has a little bit more of a less of a caramel note to it, color to it. The Opus is tasting like leather and pencil lead. Very delicious. Very good pairing with the Evan Williams. Very smooth, yet flavorful. All right. So on to the second American whiskey that we'll be trying. This is the Basil Hayden um, straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. Basil Hayden. If you ever heard of Old Granddad whiskey, Basil Hayden is the man that they named it. Old Granddad is in reference to Basil Hayden. Very storied person in American whiskey history. Um, just delicious. I mean, this is a good pairing with Basil Hayden because the Opus has spice, and I'm getting a lot of spice right now. Mostly right now, spice, pencil lead, and leather. I love that combination. Not so much tobacco right now. I'm gonna pour myself some Basil Hayden, straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. This tends to be spicy because with they add rye into the mash bill, so it turns out to be a little bit more spicy than the traditional bourbon coming out of Kentucky. So one of my favorites. Gonna pour myself a little bit, not too much. You know, I'm not really feeling it right now, but I mean, we're still got a ways to go. Probably about like half an ounce here. A little bit lighter in color than the Evan Williams. Kind of a light amber color. Almost a little bit darker than a traditional Scotch. Nice caramel nose coming off this. Definitely spicy. Almost kind of like has herbs, like an herbal flavor. Sort of like almost like a licorice, kind of like not a strong licorice, just a hint right at the end. And spice. They're very spicy. Scotch. So no Scotch. I might be feeling it. That's an American. That's a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Basil Hayden. So very spicy. Yeah. So this is good. Um, very I love Basil Hayden. I love Evan Williams. Evan Williams is a little bit smoother than Basil Hayden. Basil Hayden is a little bit spicier than Evan Williams. And the Crown Royal is sort of like a happy medium. As we're getting into this, so that wasn't that healthy of a pour, so I finished it. Very spicy, um, very delicious. Good caramel flavor and fire. Basil Hayden. I mean, I've never had an American whiskey that tasted like Basil Hayden. Um, I mean, there's a lot of American rye whiskey out there, and there's Canadian rye whiskey. I would imagine that there is some comparison there, but I've never kind of like ventured into that kind of neighborhood with American rye whiskeys or Canadian rye whiskeys. But Basil Hayden is probably where I've been, and I love Basil Hayden. Very delicious. Evan Williams. I love Evan Williams. And obviously, everybody loves Crown. So, anyway, we're gonna head into a break, and we're gonna go ahead and go into Scotland after the break. Try three three Scotch, three Scotches, two single malts. Those being Belvini, Glenmorangie, and then a blended Scotch whiskey being Johnny Walker Black Label. All right, I hope everyone's doing well out there. I hope you guys are enjoying this review, and please take care. All right, take care. Hasta la vista, amigos. Okay, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? I hope everyone's doing well out there. Like I said, it is Wednesday, November 7, 2018, around 5 o'clock in Baltimore, Maryland. See the Baltimore shirt? Orioles, all we can do is hope for better times. Lost more than 100 games this year. It is what it is. Anyway, so we're heading into Scotland now. We'll do a couple of single malts before we hit a blended whiskey. I love all Scotch. You know what I mean? I don't kind of like try. I try not to discriminate against blended whiskey because all the attention seems to be with single malts. But I do love blended Scotch whiskey. But I do have a majority of single malts, so I might be guilty of that trend. Anyway, the first Scotch we'll be trying is a single malt, the Belvini, 12-year-old double wood, the classic. If you know anything about Belvini, this is the one that's kind of the classic Belvini. Pairing it with the Fuente Opus X Toro. Wonderful so far with these whiskey pairings. So on to the Scotch. Into Scotland. Yes. Scotland, never been there. Would love to go there. Visit some of these traditional, Scotch, kind of manufacturing plants or whatever, or distilleries. So here we go. The Belvini double wood 12-year-old. Not going to give myself too healthy of a pour. Well, we're just tasting these things, so this to me is a classic Scotch profile. The Belvini double wood 12-year-old. Whether I think it's a Speyside Scotch. A lot of Scotches like the Glenfiddich and the Glenmorangie, which we'll be trying next. They tend to have share some characteristics of an American whiskey because of the caramel notes. But Belvini to me is a classic Scotch. It has that leather and cedar, kind of like fire, kind of like profile. I love the Belvini, probably my favorite Scotch. I can tell you my favorite Scotches are the Belvini and Glenfiddich. Whether it be, I think I have a 15-year-old. Those are my favorite Scotches, Belvini and Glenfiddich. I just got Glenmorangie today, and I tried it. It's delicious. So, anyway, here's the Belvini 12-year-old double wood. As you can tell, got a classic Scotch color, kind of like a yellow color, and that's the flavor. The flavor is pretty much cedar and leather and fire. So very different from like a classic American whiskey, which is mostly caramel notes. So, yep, leather, cedar, and fire, just delicious. I love the variations though. A little bit of caramel at the end, but the variations of whiskeys is what makes me interested. Because the Hakusho is very similar. The Hakusho, like I mentioned earlier in this review, Japanese whiskey is very similar to Belvini, kind of like the classic Scotch flavors, or Chivas, But I don't have Chivas Regal. um, in my repertoire right now, but I probably will add that at some point in time. So mm, leather, cedar, and fire. Very delicious. Very classic Scotch flavors. Very full body. Has a good alcohol kind of like content. Just wonderful. Um, so we're gonna move on to my most recent purchase, which was today. The Glenmorangie Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskey Sherry Cask Finish La Santa 12-year-old. This reminds me of like Glenfiddich. It's a Highland Scotch. I was told that I should, if I like Belvini, that I should stick to like Speyside which scotches. But I always wanted to get Glenmorangie, and I'm glad I did. Kind of reminds me of Glenfiddich. Um, like I said, I'm pouring light pours because I want to make it through this review and everything. Um, this is the Glenmorangie Highland Scotch. I believe it's 12-year-old. Um, let's get the nose. It smells like a classic Scotch. Reminds me of Glenfiddich. I finished that dram. Um, Reminds me of Glenfiddich. Reminds me of Glenfiddich and even Johnny Walker Black Label. Um, anyway, very delicious. Um, very caramelly. Very smooth. Just very elegant and with some fire. But I recommend it very highly. Anyway, it seems to be getting dark out here. I'm gonna have to address the lighting situation. I'm gonna have to take a break. Then we'll hit into the next break, and we'll try the Johnny Walker Black Label, and and then we'll head into the Japanese whiskeys. The final portion of this World of Whiskey review pairing with the Opus X. A great pairing. This has like spice. I'm getting just basically leather and pencil lead. Not so much tobacco, but mostly leather and pencil lead. It's very, very good combination with these whiskeys. Anyway, I'm gonna hit a break. Try to address this lighting situation. I'll be right back. Bye, con Dios, amigos. Take care. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully the lighting situation was corrected. Anyway, so we're still in Scotland, and the last whiskey, this last Scotch whiskey from Scotland. The previous two, Belvini and Glenmorangie, were single malts, and on to the third and last Scotch whiskey for this review is a blended whiskey. One of my favorites, the old Johnny Walker Black Label, 12-year-old. I love this whiskey. The way I look at it, Glenmorangie and Glenfiddich, in my whiskey experience, and Johnny Walker Black Label, although the Glenfiddich does have a little bit more kind of like peat flavor to it. They're most similar to American whiskey in that they have a strong caramel flavor, while Belvini and say like Chivas Regal tend to have that leather and cedar kind of like fire kind of profile. So go ahead and pour some. Hold on a second. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and drink this Johnny Walker Black Label. Um, Give myself a little bit of a pour, not too much. Just we're gonna head into the three Japanese whiskeys after the Scotch, the last of the Scotch here samples. A little bit of a pour. Does have a caramel color to it, kind of like a dark amber color. Like I said before, the Glenfiddich, the Glenmorangie, and the Johnny Walker Black Label tend to have characteristics similar to American whiskey and Canadian whiskey in that they have a strong caramel flavor. Like what I call classic Scotch flavors, like Belvini or Chivas Regal, and some classics, maybe Speyside Scotches, have a more of a leather and cedar and fire kind of profile. So there it is, the Johnny Walker Black Label. Has a nice caramel nose. It does have a peaty flavor to it, more peat than like a general American whiskey. Like American whiskeys and Canadian whiskeys tend to have more of a rounded caramel flavor to it, and this is like not as rounded a caramel flavor with some peat. So there is like some there identifiable differences between Scotch whiskeys and American whiskey. I mean, the classic Scotches to me are like mostly leather and cedary and fire, while classic American Canadian whiskey tends to have a strong caramel flavor and fire. The Opus seems to have went out. And I have to light this. Oh, hold on a second. I gotta light the Opus back. All right, back again. Opus is lit. Getting some good tobacco now. With still the leather and pencil lead. I love that. So this is the Johnny Walker Black Label. Winston Churchill's one of Winston Churchill's favorite Sir Winston Churchill's favorite scotches. Helped him get through the Great War along with cigars, and whiskey. I mean, what's a better pairing? So this has a caramel flavor, but it's a little bit more focused, not as round as an American whiskey or Canadian whiskey, and a little bit of peat. So that differentiates it with the old um, American whiskey and Canadian whiskey. Gonna go ahead and pair this with Japanese whiskeys. Now we're going to Japan. Japanese whiskey is made in the Scotch tradition, but made in Japan. So any whiskey made out of Scotland cannot be called Scotch. Only whiskeys made in Scotland can be called Scotch. So Japanese whiskey, although it's made in the Scotch tradition with peat, this cannot be called Scotch because it's not made in Scotland. And the next whiskey that we'll be trying is the Hakusho single malt Japanese whiskey, 12-year-old from Suntory Whiskey. Um, this whiskey, out of all Japanese whiskey, reminds me of Scotch. Classic Belvini or Chivas Regal. It has that, but it does have like a nice pear flavor and very fresh floral flavors. But it does have that kind of like cedar and leather kind of like backbone to it. Hold on a second. I don't know if you can tell, but this in this light. But this does have a classic kind of Scotch color to it. It's kind of like a butterscotch color, kind of like light yellow, um, kind of like a Chivas Regal kind of color, or like a Belvini color. And that's what this is. It reminds me very much of a classic, Belvini, or kind of like Chivas Regal, kind of like even though Chivas is like a blended Scotch, it does have that kind of like leather and cedar and fire kind of profile, but this does have some pear in it and also some kind of floral flavors to it. Very fresh. They say fresh on the bottle, but it does have a very fresh flavor with a very heavy body. Reminds me very much of Belvini, and out of all the Japanese whiskeys that I have, I have Yoichi, I have Teketsuru, Yamazaki, Coffee Grain, and now Hakusho. This reminds me most out of all those of a classic Scotch. Um, just wonderful. Pairs well with the Opus. Charcoal, tobacco, leather, and pencil leather right now out of the Opus. Smoking beautifully, like it always does. Classic Opus. Pairs well with all the whiskeys that I've tried. Um, very much like Belvini. Just delicious. A little bit more pear, a little bit more floral notes, but very fresh. Very much like Belvini, though. On to the last Japanese whiskey, and the last whiskey for this review of the World of Whiskies review. Um, Probably, this is my second most favorite whiskey um, ever. My favorite whiskey of all time is an American whiskey. Um, it's called Woodford Reserve. It just I love Woodford Reserve. It's my favorite out of all the whiskeys, and I have a variety of. I have multiple amounts of whiskey, but Woodford just fits me right. But this is my second favorite. It's a mind blowing whiskey, Japanese whiskey. It's Yoichi, single malt Yoichi. This particular whiskey is probably about. I mean, I've had it for like 2 years, 2 3 years old. Most of it's gone. I think the character of this whiskey has changed with so much exposure to the air and oxygen. But when fresh, it's just a singular experience. They're very smooth, very just elegant. The most elegant whiskey that I've ever drank in my life. The key characteristic why I love Woodford is because of the elegance. But this, I mean, when you talk about elegant whiskeys, I mean, it doesn't get better than Yuichi. I suggest you seek it out. I mean, I'm not lying to you. This is one of the best whiskeys in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And you can read the reviews too. So I'm not trying to smoke. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass or anything. So Yuichi is one of the best whiskeys in the world. It's an elegant one. It's an elegant whiskey. Not as much fire as a traditional Scotch. As you can tell, it's a very pale, kind of like amber color. It's not even amber. It's kind of like the color of sunshine. Very yellow color. Very elegant nose. Opus is smoking beautifully. I'm getting good leather and pencil lead right now. It's just delicious. So, very elegant nose. Getting a lot of leather and cedar coming off the nose. A lot more fire than I remember. Like I said, with this bottle of Yuichi, um, it's it's getting a lot of like exposure to air and oxygen. So the flavor is changing. I think it's evaporating and concentrating the flavors of the Yuichi. Um, but just a very strong. Kind of reminds me of Teketsuru. I don't know if you've watched any of my other reviews featuring Teketsuru Japanese whiskey, but kind of reminds me of Teketsuru right now. But fresh Yoichi is just a singular experience. I suggest you seek it out. I mean, I'm not lying to you. You can read the reviews on Yoichi. I mean, um, you know, just you have to understand that just take what you can from those reviews. But Yoichi is one of the greatest whiskeys in the world. So just beautiful. That's it. That was the last of the whiskeys of the world in this review. We went from Canada to America to Scotland and then to Japan. Um, I hope you found this whiskey review of the world informative, hopefully entertaining, with the pairing of the Fuente Fuente um, Opus X Toro. Great pairings. I mean, you know how I feel about Opus, so just a wonderful pairing. Just a wonderful pairing um, with the Opus. Um, like I said, today is Wednesday, November 7th, 2018, around 5:30 in the evening in Baltimore, Maryland. Hump Day. the day after the midterm elections in the United States of America. But I hope around the world that everything is going well. Um, I wish the best for everybody. But it is Wednesday Hump Day in America. The weekend is almost here. I've drank enough whiskey to feel good about myself. I love whiskey. I don't have a problem with it. Um, but I hope you found this review of the world, the whiskeys of the world. I hope you found it entertaining, informative, and I hope you got something out of this. Um, I wish the best for everybody. Anyway, I'm gonna close this review. Hold on 1 second. A wonderful pairing with the Opus X Toro. Um, you know, whiskey and cigars are great pairings. I hope you guys enjoy them and kind of like explore this kind of like combination. And I wish you all the best. Anyway, um, on this day after the midterm elections in America, you know, hopefully around the world we can enjoy the holidays and find some peace and good well-being and happiness. Anyway, I'm going to end this review of the whiskeys of the world with the pairing of the Fuente Opus X Toro. I'll end this review the way I usually end my reviews. I wish you all good health, good wealth, good fortune, the best of friends, and most importantly, family. Please take care out there, and good night.